I'm JJ Stankevitz here at the NFL annual meeting with Colts head coach Shane Steichen. Shane, a year ago at this time, you're kind of setting the foundation of what you wanted your coaching staff to look like, how you wanted things coached. You're evaluating quarterbacks. What's something now that you're freed up to do that you weren't able to do at this time last year?
Well, I think right now we're going through our self-scout process, which is huge for us. Last year was installing the system. Obviously we kept the defensive staff from last year, and those guys have been great. But now it's really offensively going through our self-scout and looking at new things that we can get better at, things we need to improve on. And go from there. But that part's been really good this offseason.
As you've gone through that self-scout, you do have continuity on the offensive side of the coaching staff. You bring in Alex Tanney, but otherwise everyone else is back on that side of the ball. How can you build on what you established last year with that continuity in your coaching staff?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, when you have your system in place, I think it helps big time, especially with the players, just understanding the verbiage and the terminology, but really trying to stay on the cutting edge of things, because this league's always changing. So if we can do that and build on what we did last year, I'll be excited for the 2024 season.
How do you approach that, where last year you have a strength of the team, say it's the offensive line playing really well? Can you realistically go into this season and be like, set it and forget it on them? Or how do you stay on the cutting edge, knowing you kind of have to constantly evolve that side?
That's a great question. I think with anything, as coaches, you want to be the best you can be, every single day. And whether that's looking at, different things around the league, looking at ideas, even in college football, trying to stay on the cutting edge and making sure it fits your players. And I think that's the biggest thing is making sure you do what your players do well as coaches, and we got to put those guys in position to do that.
Kind of continuing off that self-scout idea, and you do have continuity in personnel on offense with obviously Pitt being back, JT, Anthony, the offensive line, knowing what those guys can do now. You have proof of concept of those guys for 17 games. How can you now build on that going into next year?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think those type of guys, playing together, the chemistry, especially, Anthony and JT, finally getting a chance to be in the same backfield together coming up this year. But the chemistry, building off that, in the spring practices coming up and in training camp, that continuity and that chemistry is going to be big going forward for us.
What's it been like working with Reggie Wayne, not as a coach and a talent evaluator? Because we all know him obviously as like this franchise receiving legend, but as a coach, a talent evaluator, what stood out about him?
You know what? Going into year 3 for him now, just the progress that he's made and everything that he does for our football team. I mean, you saw the production that our receivers had last year with Pittman and Downs, having, leading the franchise in receptions for a rookie was awesome. And then going through the evaluation process, the draft, coming up and getting his thoughts and opinions. And obviously he's done it at a high level at this organization. So obviously he knows what a good receiver looks like. So it's been great to have Reggie.
Sometimes with great athletes, I remember reading something about like Tony Gwynn, the Padres Hall of Fame outfielder, who early on struggled to coach because he was just like, no, just do it like this way, like my way. Reggie doesn't seem to do that. Reggie seems to be very knowledgeable of hey, the way that I did it isn't the way that it's going to work for everyone else.
Yeah, that's right. He's very adaptable in that way. He knows our players' strengths at the wide receiver position, so he gives those guys the tools to go be successful on Sundays.
On defense, obviously you mentioned Gus coming back. A lot of continuity in terms of personnel with Zaire signing the extension, Grover, Kenny, Tyquan all coming back. What can that unit build on going into 2024?
Yeah, I think just being fast and physical every single day. The practices and going into game day is big, right? And we want to be tough on defense, and we want to get takeaways. It's going to be big, and that's one of our keys to victory every single week is getting those takeaways. And really just with anything like offense, we got to score points, and we got to keep the points down defensively is going to be big for us this year.
With the takeaways, when you have a defense that's now played together for 3 years under Gus Bradley with a lot of the same personnel, that ability to play fast, to communicate quicker, does that lead to more takeaways?
I believe so. I think it definitely will because those guys are going to be on the same page. They've heard the same terminology, going into year 3. And I always, talk about continuity, and I think it's going to be big for those guys in the system in year 3, and I think we'll see great growth.
The relationship between a coach and a general manager is always so important in this league. 1 year in with Chris Ballard, what's kind of stood out about the way that he operates and how that works with you?
Yeah, you know what? I love Chris Ballard. He's a grinder. He's a football guy. Loves the process. Obviously been doing it for a long time now, but just the way he sees the game, when we talk about personnel, He's just been tremendous for me. And, you know, shoot, when I need something and, you know, I'll ask for his opinion on certain things. He's been doing it for a long time. So, you know, just the relationship I've had with him over this past year and building into year 2 with him, I'm super excited about it.
The players will be back in the building in a couple of weeks right now as we sit here in Orlando in late March. When they get back in the building, kind of like all we talked about here is about building on that year 1.
Yeah.
What's the message to the guys who are coming back to build on year 1 now starting in mid-April?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, they know kind of, you know, the standards that have been set in place. Obviously, we're going to have a couple new faces that are coming in. You know, we'll go over those standards again and those pillars and make sure everyone understands what we're trying to get done in the 2024 season. But you know what? I say this every year. Every year is a new year. And, you know, we got to start from ground one and build this thing back up again. But something we're looking forward to.
All right. Shane Steichen, thanks for the time here. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, JJ.